The International Criminal Court's prosecutor Karim Khan has said that Israel must ensure the availability of basic food and medicines for civilians in Gaza. In a video statement, Khan warned that the curtailment of these basic necessities could give rise to criminal responsibility, and supplies to Gaza have been minimal since Israel began bombarding the densely populated Palestinian enclave. Israeli officials have said that food, water and medicines have been coming in through the Egyptian border and that it expected the quantities to rise. Separately, United Nations officials have also said that the aid supplies are limited and do not correspond to the huge need on the ground in Gaza. Smoke was spotted rising over the northern Gaza Strip as fighting in the Palestinian enclave intensified for day 24 of the war between Israel and Gaza. Palestinians in Gaza reported fierce air and artillery strikes as Israeli troops backed by tanks pressed into the enclave for a ground assault. Now, Israel's military claims that it struck over 600 militant targets over the past few days. The families of hostages taken by Hamas militants have said that Israel should prioritize the safety of the ones abducted. At the headquarters of the hostages and missing families in Tel Aviv, families have found that the safety of hostages and destroying Hamas are two conflicting goals that cannot be achieved together. Relatives of hostages formed a human chain outside the Israeli President Isaac Herzog's house, holding flyers with pictures of the people kidnapped. The militant group took more than 200 hostages, including children, reportedly by Israel, back into the Gaza Strip during its raid on the 7th of October. So far, only 4 hostages have been released. On the other side, the Palestinian Health Ministry has said that Israel's airstrikes and artillery fire have demolished large swathes of Gaza. More than 7,000 people have been killed, which includes at least 3,000 children. The Israeli military has said that its calls on Palestinians in the Gaza Strip to evacuate away from the main focus of the war against Hamas is now urgent. Israeli military spokesperson has said that the temporary southward relocation is for the personal safety of the Gazans. In a televised briefing, he also added that the number of people held hostage by Hamas militants was confirmed to be 239. The Palestinian Red Crescent has said that it received warnings from Israeli authorities to immediately evacuate a hospital in the Gaza Strip. They added that raids conducted on the day of evacuation orders had taken place just 15 meters from the medical facility. The Red Crescent says that some 14,000 people have sought shelter at the hospital from Israeli airstrikes. Earlier, Israel had accused Hamas of locating command centers and other military infrastructure in Gaza hospitals, something that the militant group has denied. At least 4 Palestinians have been killed and scores have been left injured. This after Israeli forces carried out overnight raids in the West Bank area. The footage of the raid shows Palestinian youths hurling stones at an Israeli bulldozer. Paramedics were also seen helping to evacuate families into safe zones. At least 100 people have been killed in West Bank since the war began. Separately, Israeli Defense Minister has also said that he has no interest in expanding the fighting beyond Gaza, but is prepared on all fronts. Now, Russia's Gazan airport has shut after pro-Palestinian protesters poured onto the runway. The authorities said that all aircraft bound for the Dagestan region were diverted to other airports. At the heels of the incident, Israel urged Russian authorities to protect Israelis and Jews in their jurisdictions. The demonstrations were conducted by people who gathered to denounce Israeli actions in Gaza. They were later driven out of the Russian authorities. Now, the Israeli ambassador in Moscow called this an attempt to harm Israeli citizens and the Jews. As the Israel-Gaza war continues to escalate, hundreds of Canadian protesters took to the streets of Toronto to demand a ceasefire in Gaza. Demonstrators convened outside the United States consulate for the rally, which was organized by the Palestinian Youth Movement. The protesters also raised demands to end both US and Canadian funding and support of Israel. Now, members of the Independent Jewish Voices joined the protest and criticized what they said was a genocide being done in their name. Now, in some other news, at least 3 people were killed and 51 others were injured in the 3 explosions that jolted India's state of Kerala. The bombings targeted a prayer meeting of the Jehovah's Witnesses sect in Kerala. And after the incident, many Indian cities, including Delhi, Mumbai and parts of Uttar Pradesh, were put on high alert. The incident took place at the Zamra International Convention and Exhibition Center, where around 2,500 faithful from across the state had gathered for a prayer session. At least 14 people have been confirmed dead and over 32 others injured after 2 passenger trains collided in the Indian state of Andhra Pradesh. Now, the rear-end collision between the 2 trains caused the derailment of multiple coaches. India's Railway Ministry has also said that the collision was caused because of a human error. As per the ministry, the driver of the train that collided from the rear had missed the red signal. As the rescue operations continue, accident relief trains and other rescue equipment have been engaged and helpline numbers have also been issued. Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar met with families of 8 Indians who have been detained in Qatar. Jaishankar said that New Delhi will continue to make all efforts to secure their release and will coordinate with the families. Remember, 8 former Indian Navy personnel were handed down death sentences by a court in Qatar on Thursday. Now, the 8 men were employees of the Al Dhara company. They have been kept in confinement in Doha since August last year. At least 2 people killed in Florida after a fight broke out between 2 groups and it escalated into a shooting. So far, 18 people have been hospitalized. The fight occurred in an area that has several bars. A large number of late-night revelers were present at the time of the incident. Investigators believe at least 2 shooters were involved. An overnight shooting at an Indianapolis house party left one person dead and 9 others injured. Officers who were called in at around midnight reported hearing gunshots. They found one victim who was pronounced dead at the scene. Indianapolis police said that homicide detectives are investigating the incident. Several people have been detained, while many firearms were found at the scene. Four people were shot near Georgia State University's Atlanta campus. Authorities said that one victim was in a critical condition. Police said the shooting stemmed from a dispute between two groups. The shooting took place around 5 a.m. near a racetrack gas station. Now, thousands of people in Panama City marched to demand the repealing of a copper mine contract. The copper mining contract with the First Quantum Minerals Company has sparked 9 days of demonstration over the mine's potential environmental impact. Panama President proposed that a referendum be held to decide if the controversial mining contract should be repealed. At least 3 people were killed in southern Philippines as millions turned out to vote for village leaders. Security forces were on high alert across the country as the long-delayed nationwide vote for over 336,000 council positions got underway. 2 of the victims were killed in a shootout outside a polling station on the southern island, and the incident took place during a confrontation between supporters of rival candidates for village captain. India's capital of New Delhi is once again in the grip of very poor air quality. Delhi's overall air quality index stands at 322 at the moment. Despite the action plan taken by the government, Delhi continues to battle against the air quality emergency. The Delhi government has trumpeted a winter action plan to curb a pollution menace in the city, while New Delhi's vehicular pollution and large-scale construction activities continue to escalate the crisis. Now, it is also the stubble burning and farm fires from the neighbouring states of Punjab and Haryana that shoulders the major blame. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres visited Nepal's capital city of Kathmandu yesterday. Guterres said that glaciers in Nepal were melting at record rates and the situation was dire and accelerating. As per a Kathmandu-based research center, glaciers in Asia's Hindu Kush Himalaya can lose up to 75% of their volume by century's end due to global warming. Estimates reveal that if the foresaid becomes true, then it will cause both dangerous flooding and water shortages for the 240 million people who live in the mountainous region. Now, Mexico's Acapulco is now witnessing a severe water shortage. This is just 4 days after Hurricane Otis pummeled the beach town and killed at least 48 people. With many struggling to find food and water, residents in flooded areas have criticized the lack of government help. Long queues snake next to a water truck to fill containers and receive bottles. Meanwhile, a funeral home was struggling to preserve the bodies of victims. Now, because of the lack of electricity as well as not having permits from the authorities to bury them, the government has said that cleanup efforts are likely to take time. The hurricane damaged over 2 lakh homes along with at least 600 hotels. HSBC Holdings reported a 240% increase in third quarter pre-tax profit as higher interest rates boosted the bank's profitability and helped it fund a fresh $3 billion share buyback. Now, Europe's largest bank posted a pre-tax profit of $7.7 billion for the July to September quarter versus $3.2 billion a year earlier. But the result trailed the $8.1 billion mean average estimate of brokers compiled by HSBC. The London headquartered bank, with a market value of $118.6 billion, said that it aimed to complete the share buyback by next February, lifting the total buybacks announced this year to a whopping $7 billion. Toyota Motor said that worldwide production rose 1.5% in September from the same period a year earlier. The company produced over 900,000 vehicles, boosted by stronger demand in Japan, the United States and in Europe. The Japanese automaker's domestic production, which accounted for just over a third of the vehicles it produced during the month, rose 12.8% from a year earlier, offsetting a 3.6% decline in overseas output. Now, in contrast, output and sales in Thailand, Indonesia and Vietnam fell in September due to tougher economic conditions. High inflation will dog the world economy next year, with 3/4 of over 200 economists polled by Reuters saying that the main risk is that it turns out higher than they forecast. Now, the poll also suggests interest rates will remain higher for longer, as several central banks are still expected to begin cutting interest rates by the middle of 2024. However, a growing number of economists surveyed are adjusting their views, pushing the more likely date into the second half of next year.